Okay, welcome to Contracts and Offers. Okay, so thank you for joining me. We got a one-on-one session, it looks like today, but I'll look to see if there are any other people that are going to hop on here in a second.
Okay.
Obviously want to cater it to you, but explain these concepts in a way that makes sense for everybody. So tell me, is there any specific contract or offer situation you want to discuss today?
Any that you can offer to discuss.
Okay.
Right now I'm open. I haven't had anything, so I'm learning.
All right, cool. Let's talk a little bit about, let's start off with the buyer brokerage agreement.
Okay.
Buyer brokerage agreement is the document that basically commits you and the prospect, or now client, to a working relationship. Okay. Let's say I'm the real estate agent, you're the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm showing you homes or I'm doing stuff for you, prior to this document being signed, according to license law, you are my customer.
Right.
Okay, if you remember from real estate school. Right. So customers, you're really only supposed to do what they call ministerial tasks for customers. Okay. The way that it was always explained to me was those are things that you can do with your arms and your legs.
Okay.
Okay. As soon as the person wants you to start using your brain, mm-hmm. right, that's when you should be a client.
Okay.
So you're basically facilitating things that, for lack of a better way to put it, they could do on their own. Mm-hmm. So that would be things like, how large is the home? Or how many bedrooms does the home have? These are things that this, for the most part, public information, mm-hmm. right? What are the HOA fees? What are the taxes? What school district is this property in? That type of stuff. Mm-hmm. It is things that they could figure out on their own.
Okay.
When they say a question like, what do you think I could get this home for? Mm. Right. Yeah. Or what is the value? In your opinion, what is the value of this home? Mm-hmm. Or should we include this request in our offer? Those kind of questions. That's when they're asking you to use your brain, mm-hmm. and you ought to be in a client relationship with them.
Exactly.
So the way that I describe this to a consumer is to say, look, here's the deal. I'm not expecting you to, like, you tell me you want to buy a home, and I'm not going to send you the paperwork before we meet, right? If somebody's going to commit to working with me exclusively, then I want to show them what I do, okay. Right? I don't expect them to commit to me without any type of evidence that I know what I'm doing, right? Right? So my goal is, in that first meeting, ideally I'd like it to be in a professional setting, right? Where it's kind of a needs analysis, right? Where I'm asking them a series of questions that will help me understand what they're looking for and what their motivations are and why those motivations are important to them. And kind of a little off color, it's going to help me understand how crazy they are.
Okay.
Right. So you might get the type of person that, let's say you're my prospect, and I sit you down and I say, all right, I want to help you understand a couple of things about the marketplace. Okay. Number one, 33% of homes that sell now are selling at list price or above list price. Mm-hmm. So Sadea, let me ask you a question. If I found you the ideal property that matches all the criteria that you've discussed with me, and it has, it's going to be a perfect match for you and your family, and you end up having to pay list price or possibly even over list price in order to get the home, how are you going to feel about that? And they respond by saying, I'm not paying list price. I'm not going to even pay 90% of list price. I want to buy a home for 85% of list price. I say, well, can you share with me any type of evidence that would show that that is typical in this marketplace? To which they'll say, I don't care what's typical in this marketplace. To which I'll say, it just doesn't seem like we're going to be a good match. Right. Okay. So based on the behavior of that prospect, is that somebody that you feel comfortable leaving your house and your family and investing your gas and your time and your intellect, trying to get into a relationship with that type of person? Is that somebody you want to invest your time in?
No,
That's right.
it's not.
Now, if you didn't ask those questions, you wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. Right.
Right. So another example, let's say I say to the person, the prospect during our meeting, I say, all right, I want to help you understand the average buyer that I work with looks at 6 to 8 homes before they make their decision. How do you feel about that? Right. Would you agree that there's probably a percentage of people that would say, oh my gosh, thank God, I don't want to look at any more homes. Just take me to what I've asked to see.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's probably another group of people that would say, well, I was thinking about 6 to 8 Monday and another 6 to 8 Tuesday and another 6 to 8 Wednesday. And then my grandmother from Charlotte's going to come down and want to see all my favorites. And then my dad's going to want to see all my favorites. And we're going to probably do it again next weekend and again the next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, no. And they get all huffy and puffy. And you say, it sounds to me like this isn't going to be a good working relationship. I think we ought to go our separate ways.
Right.
So is that type of person that you want to invest your time and energy and intellect with?
Too much time. I mean, I could possibly have a 2 other people with all that time. That's too
Easily.
much
time. So is it fair to say that you believe it's too much time, but they don't?
Yeah, it's fair to say that.
Okay.
Obviously,
and it's also fair to say that you don't want to work with somebody like that.
Right.
So in your business standards are that you know the market well enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know how to ask the appropriate questions all the time to identify what type of people you want to work with and which you don't want to work with.
Right.
Right. So they are more than happy to believe that they can get the home for whatever value they want. And they're more than happy to have whatever demands they want on the real estate agent's time. But you are free to decide if you're going to participate. Fair?
Right. Fair.
Okay. So our goal is to make sure that, number one, we have the confidence to share those. Hey, Donna. Number one is we want to have the confidence to make sure we're sharing those expectations.
Right.
Right. And then get buy-in that relationship is going to work. Right. I was told a long time ago, and when I first heard this, I thought the guy was absolutely crazy. And it's still a little hard for me to stomach, but I definitely agree with it more. Is I was told that if you show a buyer more than 5 homes, one of 2 things is happening. Either you don't know the market good enough, or you haven't asked them enough questions.
Okay.
Right.
That makes sense though.
Right. Because if you come to me and you say, hey, you work out of the Roswell office, so I'm just going to go on the assumption you know the Roswell market pretty well. So I want a $450,000 house in a swim and tennis community with a basement. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to show you 25 homes to find you one. That's a big waste of everybody's time.
Right.
Right. So as a professional real estate agent working in the market you work in, you ought to be so comfortable with the inventory that you already know right off the bat what 3 neighborhoods are going to be possible matches. And you already know, roughly speaking, what that home's going to look like and if 450 is reasonable price to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't understand that, and the client realizes that you don't understand that, they're going to pick a different agent.
Bill, can I ask you something that's probably totally off?
Sure.
And it deals with, I mean, I hate to compare with what I see on TV, especially reality TV, but is it, as an agent, do you really want to, when you have the knowledge of what it is the buyer is looking for, do you really go out and get something that's above the price range that they're, because they show that a lot.
I know they do.
On
I know.
TV, and it's like, why would they do that? And then someone like myself who hasn't really actually had the experience, so to speak, yet, I wondered, is that something that agents really do, or is that just TV?
Yeah, yeah, there probably are agents that do that. Yes. Is that helpful? No, not really. I mean, if somebody, let's say their strict budget is up to 200,
Right.
right? But you know that the average home sells for 96% of list price, and you see that there's a really cool option at 205.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd probably show it to them.
Yeah.
But if you see that there's a home for 250 that they're going to like,
right.
no, I definitely wouldn't do that.
I just
right?
wanted to make sure. Okay.
Because I will promise you something. If you can afford 300, you'll really like 400.
Mm-hmm.
If you can only afford 350, you'll really like 550.
Mm-hmm.
The trouble is once you go into 550 and then you realize you can't afford it, you're never going to like anything at 350 again. So you're not helping yourself and you're not helping your client either.
Okay.
Now, I thought you were going to go a different direction, which is to say, if I show 3 homes and say pick one, is that legitimate?
Okay.
Right. And I think the answer to that is yes, that is legitimate. Because what you're telling them, and you might have to repeat this clearly to them, is say, look, I work in the Roswell real estate market. I know this market very well. And I've been in and out of all the homes that you're potentially requesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that one's got termite damage, and I know that one's on a crappy lot, and I know that one's on a busy street. And so you told me you don't want any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to save your time, which is another way of saying I'm going to save my time.
Right.
Right. And I'm going to, would it be okay if I just took you to the best of the best? Well, sure. Because I do respect the value of your time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you don't want to show them necessarily every single home that meets that criteria.
Right.
You want to become the neighborhood expert so that you can show them the best stuff.
Okay.
Right.
I got it.
You know, that one's got wood rot all over the place and it's overpriced. Okay, well, that's probably not the winner. Because if they told you they don't want to do any work on the house, if you show it to them, you got a couple things going on here. Number one is you're proving that you're not listening.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly.
Number two is you're wasting your time. Exactly. And number three is you're wasting their time.
Yeah.
And if you get pushback, you need to remind them, say, hey, you told me that you didn't want to do any renovations on the home.
Right.
Has something changed? Because I've been in that home and it needs $25,000 of work. So has something changed? Yes, something has changed. My aunt just told me she'd give me 25 grand. Okay, great. Now it's a whole different discussion. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we want to make sure that we're setting the appropriate expectations with our clients so that we know essentially how crazy they are. I mean, I know you're laughing, but we're all crazy.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how crazy are you willing to tolerate.
Right. Right.
And the beautiful thing about this business is we don't have to deal with everyone that wants to deal with us. Right.
Yeah.
We don't have to deal with unmotivated people. We don't have to deal with bigots. We don't have to deal with people that don't listen to what we're saying to do. Right.
Exactly.
Right. If somebody says, well, I don't want to live in this neighborhood because it's got too many fill in the blanks. Whoa, we done. Mm-hmm. I'm done with you. Mm-hmm. Have a nice life.
What if it's opposite? What if it's the seller?
Give me an example.
And you have a seller who's just like difficult to the utmost extreme.
It depends. It depends. Like, is that a seller who won't prep their home for sale? That won't clean up?
It's a seller who feels that although they're selling as is, at a price that's just, as far as I was concerned, astronomical, and don't want to come down.
Well, I kind of look at it this way to say, can you share with me the evidence that shows that you think this is a likely scenario to happen? Okay. Right? So if all the data suggests this home should sell for, let's say, $300,000, and your client wants to sell for $350,000, say, great, I totally understand your desire to sell for 350, but I'm just curious. Can you share with me some data that I can share with buyers and their agents and the appraiser that would support this price?
Okay.
Right? To which they will be forced to say, no, I don't have any data that would support that.
Mhm.
Right? To which you'll say, great. So we're going to move on at my price. Right? And if
Okay.
they're like, no, I need to sell for 350, say, um, again, I'm just curious. Can you share with me the data that supports your desire? And they're like, well, I put a $200,000 pool in the backyard, and I have, these really fancy knobs on the kitchen cabinets, and I used fancy paint and all this kind of stuff. It's like I get that, but the thing is no one's going to pay more than the neighbors have been willing to pay.
Exactly. Okay.
Right? So you're just having a fact, evidence-based, statistical-based conversation. Okay? And when you have those, you either get somebody who says, yeah, I get it, right? Or you have somebody that just flat out isn't, their mind just isn't accepting it. I'll give you another example. Okay. Let's say, this is kind of relevant right now. So let's say you bought Home Depot stock at 200.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I don't know. I got some Home Depot stock and I paid a lot less than that because I've had it a long time. But 2 weeks ago, it was worth 235. Today, it's worth about 160. Right? So let's say I paid 200 for it. Well, the market says it's worth 160.
Mm-hmm.
So if I wanted to sell that for 200, how many people do you think would buy it?
I don't think too many. Not if the market is saying 160. You don't have.
There's roughly 8 billion people in the world, and I don't think
Yeah,
there's a single one of them that would be willing to pay 200.
yeah, it's not going to happen.
Correct?
You're right.
Because anybody that is making an investment is going to say, what have other people paid for a similar investment?
Right.
Market says it's worth 160. I'll give you 160 for it.
Exactly.
And they say, no, the price is 200. You're like, are you like, what's going on with you? Are you nuts?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
So it ain't going to sell for 200.
It's not.
It doesn't matter what kind of marketing you do. It doesn't matter how many billboards you put it on. It doesn't matter how many fireworks and balloons you hang from the house. It ain't going to sell for 200 because there's no evidence that says it's worth 200. Right? Now, the same thing goes the opposite direction. So let's say that, so let's go back to Home Depot. Home Depot stock's selling for 165, or what did I say, 160.
160.
Now, what if I put out an ad that says Home Depot stock available for 130? What do you think people would do?
They're going to jump on it.
That's right. There'd be a line out the door.
Yeah.
Because everyone in the universe would see value there.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Okay, it's the same thing with every market, including the housing market. But if I said I got one share of stock of Home Depot, I'm willing to sell for 130, give me your highest and best offer, what do you think people would do? I think people would bid it back up to 160 because that's what it's worth.
If it's worth 160, you're gonna have a bidding war too.
That's right. Yet it probably will not go much past 160.
No, it's not because market said what it's worth is 160. Right.
Now, the one share of Home Depot is not unique. So no one's going to pay 165 because they need a share of Home Depot, because they could just go buy somebody else's share of Home Depot for 160. Now, if you have a unique property, or you have a unique desire, or you have a unique time frame or something like that that causes you not to put as much value in the price, but more on the terms or the location or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you might be willing to overpay for it.
Okay.
Let me rephrase that. You may be willing to pay more than the market would suggest it's worth.
Not
right?
Much.
So if there's one share left in the world, you might pay 180 for it.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's 20 billion shares, you're not going to pay more than 160 for it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It makes all the sense in the world. Yeah.
So I'll give you a personal example. Okay. I just bought a home in July of this last year.
Mm-hmm.
I bought the home off the market. It wasn't listed. I bought from a friend of a friend. And my wife and I and our family wanted to be in a very, very specific area. and we were very cognizant of how far it was away from a synagogue. Okay.
Mhm.
And so literally a house 3/4 of a mile away wasn't nearly as attractive as the one that we bought.
Okay.
Right. Very, I mean, it's a very odd request, right? You don't generally have somebody that has needs like that. Right.
Right.
Now, so the guy let me into the house, and he told me roughly what it was priced at, or what he wanted for the home. So, I knew I could afford that.
Mhm.
And so I, went in and I showed my wife, because obviously if, let's say, the house is 600 grand and I can only afford 400 grand, I ain't going to show my wife the house, because she's going to really like it. And then we're going to have
Right.
a problem.
Right.
Right. So I'm going to show her the houses we can afford, because I also don't want to see it.
Mhm.
Right. So we walk in the home. He tells me roughly what he wants for it. And we walk through the home, and I basically said to him, what do you want? And he says, well, I'm thinking this. And I said, well, I'm going to give you an offer right now. And I want the offer to be whatever you want, so that you don't show this to anyone else.
Okay.
Right. Now,
Mhm.
by the way, that's not a great negotiation strategy
But
unless you have a very specific desire.
right.
But I didn't want anyone else to see this home, because I didn't want to lose it.
Right.
So then so I go under contract, right? And then somebody says, well, did you get a good deal? I said, I doubt it. Right.
Right.
I got the house. I wanted the house. Right.
Oh
But
God.
did I overpay for the home? Probably.
Mhm.
Right. And you want to know the evidence? The evidence is there's 8 billion people in the world, and he only showed it to one person.
Right.
That's not all that strategic. Right. So why would he be willing to do that? He would be willing to do that because he was convinced that he was getting more money from me than he could have had he put it
Got
on the open market.
Got it. Mhm.
That's the only reason why he should do that. Make sense?
Yeah.
So did I get a good deal? Quite frankly, I don't give a damn. I
Right.
got the house where I wanted it to be when I wanted it,
Mhm.
and I'll be fine. If it's worth $10,000 more, $10,000 less, that's not what I was thinking about. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was other things that was. Yeah, I got it.
Okay, so sometimes it's going to be about money, and sometimes it's going to be about other things.
Yeah, I
Now,
got
the
it.
only way you're going to know is if you ask the questions,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And that's the importance of the buyer presentation and the seller presentation, really, because you need to know, hey, a lot of our requests are going to come within 24 hours.
Mhm.
If I call you on Friday at 2:00 and say we got a showing at 11:00 Saturday, can you get the house together? Well, no, we need 4 days notice. This ain't gonna work.
Right. Woo. 4 days.
Okay.
Okay.
No. And I say, all right, here's the deal. Some of these showings are within an hour. Okay. So when I call you and I say we got a showing within the hour, your daughter's got this project for the next 10 minutes, your son's got this project for the next 10 minutes, your husband's got this project for the next 10 minutes to get this home ready.
Yeah.
Because we serious, and I'm on the team, and y'all hired me to get this home sold. Y'all don't need another friend. You need a real estate agent, an aggressive one.
Exactly.
Make
Okay.
sense?
Yep, it makes sense.
Donna,
Bill, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So last night, Stephanie and I were talking, and she mentioned that Robin T directed her to a buyer and seller's presentation on something Mitchell. Is it Mike Mitchell? Or
Michael Lewis Marketing Suite.
Yes. Is that something that's overused or something that we should take advantage of?
I think there are probably a bunch of people that use it, but you're going to tweak it to your own personal stuff anyway. So I would definitely take advantage of that.
Okay,
What is
great.
that? Michael Lewis what?
Michael Lewis Marketing Suite.com. It's a service. It's not free, but the Market Center pays for it. That's available to everyone. It's not just PC people. And it's essentially a design firm. So you can, they have a bunch of templates for flyers and just listed, just sold, and these kind of things. The login instructions are on your orientation paperwork that Lucy sent you.
Mhm.
But I believe your username is your email address, your KW email address, and the password is MLMS, Michael Lewis Marketing Suite. Password, MLMS password is the password. I didn't set that up. Okay, you can change it, I believe, once you're in the system. But absolutely, I'm glad you brought that up, Kim. I would highly suggest that you have a presentation that is professionally created, or looks real sharp. So let's go back. Let's summarize for a second. We were talking about the buyer brokerage agreement. The buyer brokerage agreement is the document that separates somebody from being a client or customer to a client. And so whenever I met with somebody, whether it was showing them a house or in a buyer consultation, at the end of it, once they saw the value I was delivering and how I answered the questions and how I explained things, right? And I was proving that I was going to be incredibly serious and incredibly dedicated to their goals, right? I would hand them a blank copy of it and I would say, so this is something called the buyer brokerage agreement. And this is a document that Georgia Association of, or Georgia Real Estate Commission requires us to have signed when we enter into a client relationship. So I just want to talk to you really briefly about what that means. Okay, today you are my customer, okay, according to the state of Georgia Real Estate Commission. And as my customer, I'm really only supposed to use my hands and my feet in helping you. It's kind of facilitating a lot of information you could get on your own. But if you want my opinion, if you want me to represent you in your interest and be a fiduciary to you, that's when you would sign this document. So this document takes us from a customer relationship to a client relationship. Okay. And in short, what it does is it creates a loyalty relationship from me to you and vice versa. It can be terminated at any time by either party, right? So really, just as a side note, it is kind of symbolic. I mean, it does obviously have its place in license law, but I kind of think of it as pretty symbolic, right? Because if you sign this thing and 2 days from now you say I don't like you anymore and you cancel it, then there's no money exchanged or anything like that, right? We didn't. Nothing happened, right? And so my job is I'm going to work for you. Okay. I'm working with a lot of customers right now. I'm working with a lot of clients right now. But once I know that you're loyal to me, I'm going to be incredibly loyal to you.
Right.
Okay. And if you're not ready to commit to me officially, that's fine. I understand you might be interviewing other agents. I just want to know, like we used the line earlier today. Hey, what would it take to have you commit to working with me? What would you like? Well, I want an agent that'll send me an email at the end of every night saying what they did for me that day. Are you willing to do that? Right? Okay, great. Take the deal. If you're not willing to do that, don't do it. Hey, let me ask you a question. I'm just curious. What's important to you about that? Well, I want to know you're working for me. Okay. Right? So just ask the question, go deep, but assume the sale and say, hey, what would have to happen for you to commit to working with me today? Right? Or, hey, how long do you need to think about it? A week? What can I do for you in the next week to prove to you I'm the best agent for you? Right? Because very few people are being that direct. And let me tell you something. They want a direct person. Does that sound rude to you?
No.
Does that sound direct?
It sounds direct, though.
Okay. Do you want the person representing your greatest asset, most likely your most expensive asset? Do you want somebody that's going to take it seriously and be well trained and professional and skilled and assertive?
Yes.
Or do you want a pushover?
No, I want the assertive person.
Good. Well, here I am. Sign the paperwork. Would you rather sign in blue or black? Or electronically? Here, I'll sign you in. I mean, I'm saying that stuff in jest, but I'm serious.
Right.
I'll look him dead in the face and say, I'm the best agent for you. I know that. So just sign the papers. Right?
Okay.
All right. So that is essentially the buyer brokerage agreement. I say, look, I don't expect you to sign it right now. Go home, review it. Let me know if you got any questions. At some point in the future, I'm going to ask you to sign it. Right? And so I just want you to understand what the document represents. Cool?
Cool.
All right. Same thing with listings. Okay. You would never take a listing without a contract, right?
Right.
So we shouldn't do that with buyers. right?
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So what I want you guys to do is I'm gonna read out a list real fast, and I'm gonna have you jot down some contracts, okay?
Okay.
Alrighty.
And then I'll tell you what the assignment is in a second. Purchase and sale.
Okay.
FHA loan exhibit. Seller's property disclosure. Conventional loan exhibit. Payment of community association dues. Or payment of community association disclosure.
Payment of community.
I think they just changed the name actually. Just write down community association disclosure.
Community association. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Let's start with those. So purchase and sale, FHA, conventional loan, seller's disclosure, and community association disclosure, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I want you to download one of those. Download them all, but I want you to read one of them every day.
Oh, okay.
Read one of them every day and see if you understand it. And then every day we can have a conversation around it. Okay? Because I want you to be able to do a few things. Number one is I want you to be able to explain it in like 30 seconds, right? You don't need to go through every sentence. But say, hey, here's the basics, here's what the risks are, here's what the not risks are, here's where you sign. Right?
Okay.
So the conventional loan exhibit, for example, would say, okay, here's where we put the interest rate, here's where we put the lender, here's where we put the appraisal contingency, this is what's normal, this is what's not normal. So Dave, you got plenty of help. I see those big eyes.
That 30
with
seconds
you.
got me.
Well, if somebody's explaining the contract to you that's longer than 30 seconds, you're going to start to tune out?
Yeah.
Me too. So better figure out how to way to deliver it in less time than that.
Understood.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
I'll say one more thing. This might be my new saying for a few days, so hopefully you guys don't take offense to it. If you treat it like a hobby, it will pay you like a hobby.
Pay you like a hobby. I got it.
Right. And if you treat it like a business, you'll be absolutely shocked at the results you get. Shocked.
I got it.
Okay. I was just telling Kim earlier today, and I'm not saying this to brag, but I got to the point where I was making $200,000 a year, working like 20, 25 hours a week. And I was going in trying to figure out how I could work even less. And it was possible. Right?
You must have had some awesome processes.
Right.
I did. I mean, that you have to. You have to. But I wasn't handed them. I created them.
Yeah.
And I said, I had one, and I'm like, shit, this ain't working. I need a new process. And then I went around and I found all the people that were smarter than me and making more money than me. And I said, help me. Right? Who can I get coached by? Do I need to get on an airplane to go figure out how to do this? Because this ain't working. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have done that, and I wouldn't have invested that money had I not seen the potential for how my business could grow. Right?
Right.
So I'm all these stories that I say to you guys, they're not to be boastful. You likely, hopefully, you know that that's not something that's all that important to me.
No.
It's just a matter of to say I've experienced it before, and as I was kind of joking with Kim earlier today, like you don't just like, okay, cool. You want to say hi?
Hi.
Hi, beautiful girl.
This is my daughter, Miriam Sheena.
You are
Hi,
gorgeous.
Miriam. Mm-hmm.
Show them what came in the mail.
Yes.
How old are you?
Oh, Amazon. I like
Yeah,
Amazon.
We ordered a football, so we're gonna toss the football a little later.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
How old are you anyway? 17. Oh my gosh, she's 7. Just trying to get a laugh out of everybody. Okay, we close the door.
She say 17. Lord have mercy.
Seriously. All right. So, does all that resonate with you guys?
It does.
Okay.
It resonates.
The way that you deal with people that are emotional and they don't know like what's up and what's down is by evidence.
Mm,
and
that makes
stats.
sense.
So I was talking to Kim earlier today, and I said, like, look, we're not going to be able to like make a little slit in your arm and implant I know every contract and I know every script and I know every presentation, right? There'll probably be a time for that at some point in the future. Okay, but we're not there yet. So
is Stephanie on this call?
No.
Okay, good. Look, I'm having my after workout snack.
Nice. Nice. So you're gonna have to earn it, right? You're gonna have to day by day. You're gonna have to make yourself smarter, right? And the beautiful thing about this business is, guys, we get full control over everything we do with every minute we have. Okay, we don't have to get permission to go to a dentist appointment or take a vacation or sleep in or any of that stuff. We don't have to clock in or clock out, and we get to control everything. We get to control when we work, who we work with, why we work with them, how much money we make, how many appointments we go on, how many hours we spend generating leads, how many hours we spend getting smarter. We get to control everything. If you treat it like a hobby, it'll pay you like a hobby. Okay. And there's people that just aren't cut out for it. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. So the biggest takeaway, I think, from this idea of contracts is number one is you need to have a plan to understand the contracts, right? So like I said, those 7 or 8 contracts, the ones I listed, are probably the most common contracts there are. Okay. When you're dealing with a seller, the most common ones are, and the listing agreement. Okay. And the buyer brokerage agreement. Those are the 2 other, I'm sorry, I forgot those. Okay, wait. Buyer brokerage agreement and the exclusive seller listing agreement. Okay. So the primary documents that you're going to work with a seller are the listing agreement, the seller's property disclosure statement, and if it's part of an HOA where there's a community, like a community association, like a Summon Tennis, or you pay some type of HOA fees, there'll be a community disclosure, which basically says like, who do I contact when I have questions? What is the fee? When is it due? What does it cover? Is there any litigation going on? Is there any talk of an assessment happening? These kind of things. The seller's property disclosure statement is going to go through the details of the property, like when was it built? How old are the systems? Have there ever been any water issues? Have there been any ever electrical issues? Have there ever been any mold issues? Have there ever been any, did anyone make meth here, right? Do you have anything on the property that wasn't, what do you call, permitted? Right at the end of it, it says like, here's a list of a bunch of stuff that is going to be in your home. Give me just another minute, okay?
It's okay.
Yeah, it is.
All right, say bye.
We get it.
Hi.
Hi.
Bye.
Bye. Come on with your football. You have fun with your football.
Yeah, this kid loves being on Zoom. All right, seriously. Okay, seriously, please. I'll throw the football with you in a second. Goodness, I'm sorry, guys.
She's like, we taking up too much of her time.
So, where was I? I'm distracted.
Seller, you were on a disclosure.
Oh, the disclosures. The disclosures would say like what parts of the property are included in the sale. So for example, it would be like, is the or all like the what's a good example? Like the fixtures, like is the mounted TV included in the sale? Are all the fancy landscape lighting included in the sale? Is the basketball hoop in the back, is that part of the sale? Right? Are you including all of the window blinds?
Okay.
Are you including all of the hot tub that's in the back? Is that included?
Okay.
Right? Is there anything in the
So
property
do the regular appliances go on this too?
Yeah,
or
yeah,
the regular
those are all in there too. When you look at the disclosure, you'll see that. And
Okay.
it says check it if it's going to be included in the sale.
Right.
Okay.
So, with very few exceptions, the appliances are included.
Okay.
Okay. So the microwave, like the microwave, if it's mounted, it's going to be included. If it's just standing alone and it's sitting on the countertop, you would say whether it's included or not. Okay. The fridge, you're starting to see the fridges, especially in the higher end. Well, really high end, they expect you to leave it. Kind of that mid range, you're starting to see that the sellers are trying to hold on to them a little bit more often. Okay. Like I'm selling a home right now that's listed for $470. I'm including the fridge. Okay.
Right.
But there's other homes that are, similar price or similar area where they're not including the fridge.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So what's included in the sale? So what I want you to do is take each of these contracts, read through them, try to understand them.
Okay.
Right. And then we can spend some time going through each one, kind of highlighting what's important, what's not so important. How do you summarize this? Right. How do you answer some of the most common questions about it? Right.
Okay.
Because ideally what you want to do is set up all these expectations ahead of time. Right.
Okay.
Well, let's come back to that in a second. For a seller, it's the listing agreement, the seller's disclosure, and the community association disclosure. Those are the primary ones. Okay. For a buyer, it's the buyer brokerage agreement. It's the purchase and sale. You're going to have those two disclosure statements from the seller because they're going to complete them on the house that the buyer's trying to buy. And then the other two documents are the FHA and the conventional. It depends on what kind of loan they're going to get.
Okay.
Right. And if they're a cash buyer, then there's a document, all cash disclosure. So you want to start to review these documents and make sure you know how to explain them to the buyer. Now, what I like to do is explain these to the clients prior to when it's hectic. Right. Okay. So what I mean by that is I don't want to show them a ton of houses and then them say they want to write an offer, and then I have to spend the next 3 hours explaining everything to them and dealing with contracts and comps and talking to the other agent. Before you know it, it's midnight.
Okay.
Right. I want to explain, Kim, we're right there with you.
It's just so much information. I'm just on overload right now. It's okay.
I know. I mean, I've been in the business for 15 years, so had you plucked me out and asked me these questions 13 years ago, I probably wouldn't have a clue. But every day I made a commitment to myself that I was going to get smarter.
Yeah.
Right.
So I do kind of appreciate this downtime almost, even though I wish it weren't these circumstances, but I appreciate it because it gives me time to learn all of this stuff so I don't walk into a client presentation looking like an idiot. So I appreciate
there's a reason everything's happening. I firmly believe that too. Right.
Yes.
So you're going to read through all the contracts and you're going to figure out what you don't understand, and we're going to talk about it.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I like to explain to them, okay, so here's how the contract, here's what a due diligence period is. Here's what a financing contingency is. Here's what a appraisal contingency is. Here's the typical number of days. Here's what your rights are. Here's what risks you're taking. Here's what risks we're protecting, right? And so they kind of already know how the contract is going to be put together and like some of the theory behind it prior to them finding the home. So that way they go from Bill write it up to an hour later they're signing the paperwork, fully understanding what they're agreeing to.
Okay.
right?
Okay.
I mean, before I had a lot of these systems set up and before I had an assistant, there were days where I would show homes at night, and I know this sounds crazy, but I would like pray that they didn't like them,
Mm.
because
Too
I
much
was
work.
like, it's too much. I'm tapped out. Like, if this
Yeah.
person wants to write an offer and I got to dedicate the next 4 hours of my life to that, I don't care how much I'm getting paid. I got no energy.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Now, that's not a great position to be in. That's a good sign that you need help. Right. But I
Right.
got it down to the point where they'd say they liked the property, and I'd call my assistant and say, okay, FHA loan, include the termite stip, include the HOA stip, have it pulled up on my computer when they get up, pre-approvals in the email. It's a 15-day this, 12-day this, 7-day this. And this is how I want you to send the comps to them. Go ahead and send it. Use the template that we have in this file.
Wow. Okay.
And then I'd get home and it would all be done.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's kind of like when you go to the Kimberly or Kim, I'll give you I'll give you an example. When was the last time you went to the doctor?
Probably 3 weeks ago.
Okay, and when you went to the doctor and you walked in the building, who did you sign in with? Who did you check in with?
The front desk assistant, whatever she did. Yeah, the front desk assistant.
Okay, and then when you got called back, who was the first person that walked in the door? Was it the doctor?
No, the nurse.
Oh, it was actually a nurse?
Yes, it was a real nurse.
A lot of times they have the nurse's assistant as the first person in the room.
Yeah, is a different kind of doctor's office, just a nurse.
Okay, so let's say it's a nurse. And then what does the nurse do? She weighs you, she takes your pulse, she asks you what you're complaining about, etc., right?
Yes, she drawing blood. She actually drew blood too.
Right, and what does the doctor do?
He basically came in there, talked to me, and gave me the exam.
Right. So in some organizations, what ends up happening is the nurse's assistant does all the stuff the nurse used to do. The nurse does all the stuff the doctor used to do. And the doctor comes in at the end and says, hey, nice to see you. Did everyone behave themselves?
Yeah, it's actually like that at my daughter's when she used to go to pediatrics, that's the way it worked.
Exactly.
Usually most of the time it was the nurse doing all the work.
That's right.
And the doctor would check in, like peek her head in and go, oh, she looks great. And that was kind of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so the point is the doctor's not checking you in. The doctor's not weighing you. The doctor's not asking you what hurts. The doctor's even most of the time not even prescribing anything. Right?
Correct.
So why? You still, all that stuff has to get done. What happens is the doctors put a team around them of people that are supporting the goal of getting this person healthy. Right? So just like you, even as a solo agent, you think you're a solo agent, but you still have a lender partner. You still have a closing attorney partner. You still have a director of technology in the office. You have a team leader. You have a productivity coach. You have an agent services person. You have Melody at the front. Like, you've got a team of people that are going to support your goals. Right? So start thinking of those people as your team, because they're going to offset some of the work. Right? You might have a buyer who you go under contract with, and the buyer brings in the earnest money check. Do you have to be there to receive it? No, Melody can receive it. Lee or Aaron can receive it. Lucy can receive it. All of us can receive it. Right?
Okay.
My point is start thinking like we're all a big team.
Yes.
Okay? Because the more leverage you can add into your life, even if it's not real estate related, right, the easier everything's going to be.
Right.
Like, I think I've told you guys this story before where, I'm a business owner. My wife is a business owner. I get zero fulfillment from folding clothes. My wife gets zero fulfillment from folding clothes. My daughter's like a week away from that being her job. I was just talking.
She'll be excited. She's probably excited.
Right. But in the meantime, somebody comes over to her house every week and makes the pile of laundry go away. And we pay her $25 to do it.
Right.
And I think I'm very grateful that I have the income to be able to afford that. But when I do what I'm trained to do, it's worth more than $25 an hour.
Right. Right.
Right. And by the way, all of you guys are the same way. A high productive agent, an agent that knows how to use their time efficiently, is probably worth $200 to $300 an hour. Right.
Got it.
So if I followed you around all day, would I think that you were a real estate agent?
Yep.
I don't know.
Oh, it's nice. I like your football. It's cool.
Right. Would I think you're a real estate agent? How would I know? I would know by how much time you spend learning how to be a good agent, and how much time you spend in your database by making it smarter and have more data. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
Cool. So everything that we do here, guys, by the way, it's just given me more and more ideas of what type of content you guys need. So this was kind of designed to be a contracts and, oh my gosh, contracts and offers. We kind of went through some of the contracts and we kind of came up with some strategy on some homework. But what I'd love for you to do
homework. I love homework.
Right.
I wish I loved homework.
is to print out these contracts, read them, review them.
Right.
And let's identify any things we don't understand. And from this point forward, we're gonna start to master that stuff. The more stuff you master and the more confidence you have, the more it's going to come across in your daily activities and in your presentations, and you're going to have more success as a result. So there'll be another offering in the future about offers and putting specific contracts together and kind of understanding the typical contingency periods and all that. We'll get to it. But please know myself and the rest of the leadership team and the tech team and all that are here to support you. Anything you need, just shout it out, and stay safe.
All right,
Bill, I'm going to send you my GPS. I'm sorry, Sadia. I'm going to send you my GPS in a few minutes. Okay. Sorry, Sadia.
And just a reminder, I'll be back with you guys on Friday. I have that medical procedure tomorrow.
All right, we're thinking about you. Please let us know what we can do, okay?
So, thanks, guys.
All right, be safe.
Bye.